So I came across this meme. I came across a meme that I'm gonna quote. I don't want to zero the folks out who made the meme, but it's not a perfect quote. But it says something like, "Manifestation doesn't work for people with trauma because your brain is wired for survival." It said manifestation does not work for people with trauma because your brain is wired for survival. And I just want to say that that statement in and of itself is a trauma response. It's a trauma response, and it tells me that that person who wrote that quote doesn't think of themselves worthy. They actually might be having a self-worth issue, because they might be thinking to themselves, well, if I'm traumatized and I'm wired for survival, I must not be manifesting. It must not work for me. Yes, it is. Yes. If you have trauma and you're wired for survival, it will affect what you manifest. Well, what is more likely will happen is you'll manifest people. You'll manifest yourself in people and situations that help reflect that back to you. Why are you in that survival mode? What is the trauma? What does your survival mode look like? What is the kind of theme of your survival mode? Because everybody's survival mode isn't exactly the same. I mean, there might be like, I don't know, different levels, different categories, so to speak. However, yes, you are. Manifestation works for everyone all the time. You just got to pay attention to what it is you're manifesting. So if you're in survival mode, you'll likely manifest, you'll manifest yourself, you'll manifest encounters and situations. In other words, you'll meet a lot of people who are also in survival mode. You'll meet other people in survival mode, so that you can see yourself, right? When they say this person is reflecting me, first of all, everyone you manifest, everyone, especially in your immediate circle, is a reflection of some parts of you. You utilize what you're manifesting in order to see yourself more clearly, so that you can start to make some decisions about how you want to shift your reality. Think about, a lot of the talk about shifting your reality. You have to shift it. So you shift your reality in order to shift what you're manifesting. Erykah Badu, I came across a video of Erykah Badu who said, you don't necessarily manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. So there's a lot of misconceptions, and being traumatized doesn't necessarily make you an expert on trauma, and being traumatized definitely don't make you an expert on manifestation, which is why I said this person might be having a kind of a self-worth issue. So whoever wrote this is likely in survival mode, and might be manifesting encounters and situations that is constantly reflecting back that survival mode. And so they thinking to themselves, damn, manifestation must not be working, because I'm trying to manifest what I want. I'm getting this and I want that instead, and it's not working, and it must not be working because I'm traumatized. Like, no, it's not working because you don't understand manifestation. It's not working because you don't have a deeper understanding of how to shift your reality. So what I would say to that person is, take your time to actually study how manifestation works. Do more research. Maybe listen to more of these coaches, or read more articles about shifting your reality. That's why we have it. It's called shifting your reality. There's you have to be proactive in shifting your reality. So if I keep manifesting this, but I want to manifest that, and I notice I'm not manifesting that, that means there's something in me. You don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are. And so this person is also making an excuse for why they're not manifesting something else. That person is literally speaking from survival mode. They're speaking from trauma, and their trauma response is, I must it must not work. Yes, you're always manifesting. You're always manifesting. Matter of fact, that person manifested that quote. Right? And the hope, I guess, for someone like me is hope that someone saw it and gave them this kind of response. And so you got to shift something within you. You got to decide. You got to start making some decisions within you, taking some initiative, and taking actions, doing things for yourself that will shift the inside of you so that you shift the outside of you. You can't just force the reality to shift. A lot of people tend to also be a lot of people's trauma response is also to get very controlling. We try to have more control over things because we think it makes people feel more secure. You know what I'm saying? Don't listen to that talk. Don't ever buy that. That if you're traumatized, manifestation don't work for you. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's working. It might not be working the way you want it to work, and that's intentional. If it's not working the way you want it to work, that is your reality. Yes, your reality reflecting back to you that you're not making the inner changes. It's scary. Coming out of survival mode is a little scary, but one thing I want to say is we always talk about how scary it is, but it's only scary at first, right? When you're first doing something new, or when you first meet somebody new, when you first get into a new situation, there is a little scary because it's new territory. If you only know survival mode, that's all you know. So leaving survival mode is going into unknown territory. That's what's scary. It's scary because it's unknown, but it doesn't have to be, right? The power of suggestion is very, 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 very real. The power of suggestion is very, very real. So if you keep telling yourself how it's scary it is, then it's going to keep being scary, right? Sometimes we need to remind ourselves that when I'm doing something new, I'm doing something I've never done before, it's going to be scary at first until it's not anymore. And when you make the changes within, maybe you need to change it. Maybe this person needs to change their routine. Maybe this person definitely needs to start shifting this mindset that somehow manifestation doesn't work, or that maybe they're not worthy of it. That's why I'm like, maybe they're not feeling worthy of the better life. I find this a lot. A lot of people have experienced incredible trauma. Especially if you've been in I want to say a toxic situation, something like that, for an extended period of time, it causes us to feel discouraged, and we feel like the rest of our life is going to look like the past. You know, it's like tomorrow doesn't have to look like today. That's more metaphoric, because life doesn't always shift in a day. These are phrases, but your tomorrows do not have to look like your yesterdays. But that is an inside job. You have to do it, you know, like I said, maybe this person needs to shift their mindset. This person might need to shift their routine. Maybe they need to shift who it is they're listening to. There's a lot of wannabe gurus out here. There's a lot of wannabe coaches out here that is saying things like that. Oh, it's not working for you because you're trauma. Like, no. I don't know who said it to that person. I don't know where they came up with that. But that is absolutely not true. And again, I like to remind folks that there's a lot of mischievous energies out there who don't want people to heal. There's a lot of mischievous energies out there that don't want people to heal, and it sucks, but it's true. And so they'll claim to be a healer or a coach and all those things, while really being more like a chaos agent, or someone coming into your life to sabotage you. They're pretending like they help you, and then they say things like, oh, the manifestation don't work. That person is not helping you. Somebody says something like that to you, they're not trying to help you. They're trying to keep you in survival mode. That person needs to be cut off and cut out. And that's one more thing that needs to shift, right? Sometimes we need to shift who we're listening to. Sometimes we need to shift who we're hanging out with, right? Your outside world is a reflection of your inside world. I'm going to keep this video real simple. Obviously, life is not always that simple, but it doesn't always have to be that complicated either. So one thing I like to say to people is, let the easy things be easy. I always say this to people. Let the easy things be easy. Everything's not going to be easy, but let's not complicate the things that are. Let the easy things be easy. Firstly, everybody manifests whether they know it or not. You're either doing it intentionally, or you're doing it by default. But you're always manifesting. You're always manifesting. As long as you're alive, you are manifesting. It always works. It's absolute. It's definite. That's a definite. That's an absolute. That's a constant. And so, again, you pay attention. What do I keep manifesting? Matter of fact, when I was more in the survival mode, I noticed that I was manifesting a lot of people in survival mode. They were reflecting back to me my survival mode. I would meet people that were reflecting back to me my bad habits. And I would also meet people who would reflect back to me my good habits. Because sometimes we're so focused on this self-judgment, we're focused on aspects of ourselves that we've deemed not good enough or not good at all. And we start, it kind of diminishes all the great things about you in the background. For one, this person made this beautiful meme, right? Maybe they're a graphic artist. I have no idea. But don't let self-judgment diminish the parts of you that are amazing, and diminish the parts of you that is great. I meet people all the time who have these wonderful skill sets. They have these amazing talents, and you can tell just from hanging out with them that they didn't have enough people in their lives saying, wow, that thing that you do is so amazing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of haters in the world, and there's a lot of haters out here who know how to pretend to like you. There's a lot of haters out here who knows how to pretend to like you, to pretend that they care about you, or maybe they are just kind of going through the motion because they're also traumatized and not really feeling anything, right? You manifest what you are. You don't manifest what you want. So when you want to change your manifestation, you got to be willing to change. Part of me wanted to think of another saying, but it's like, and that change needs to be deliberate. And so this person sounds to me like this person it sounds a little bit to me like this person also is a bit pessimistic, right? Maybe they need to see that their pessimism is affecting their manifestations, right? If this person is walking around with this pessimistic attitude all the time, then it's affecting their manifestation. Pardon, I'm just pausing because people were riding by. But there's a saying that goes, where does it go? Like I mentioned, like the power of suggestion. So somebody keeps talking about red cars, then your brain starts to see red cars. The brain is very programmable by what you say to yourself. And so that's, you ever do that activity? You ever be at a workshop or whatever, and they do this activity where they say, okay, I want you to close your eyes, right? And I want you to think of the color red, right? In a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to point out all of the red things in the room. And I want you to first close your eyes, and I want you to visualize the color red. And I'm going to give you a minute to do that, right? And then they say, okay, now open your eyes, and I want you to look for green things. I want you to look for things that are green. And then people, at first they're surprised that he switched the color. And then they kind of look around and look around. It takes a little bit longer. Why? Because you've been focusing on red. You open your eyes, the first thing you're going to see is everything that's red. And so you got to actually start looking for what's green. Because he said, look for anything that's green in the room. So you start looking. You have to kind of look for it now, because you've been focusing on red. You know what I'm saying? And so this person who believes that trauma somehow makes manifestation not work for them is kind of like, that person is probably only paying attention to the disappointments. They're paying attention to what they didn't get. They're paying attention to what didn't work, and might not be paying enough attention to what has been working, what is working, right? You know what I'm saying? There is always a silver lining, but sometimes you gotta really look for it, especially if you have wired yourself to survival mode, and you got to rewire. That's why we have all this stuff about rewiring your brain. You got to do it. That's an action. That's action you got to do. You can't always just pray and hope for better. That person is probably just hoping for better, hoping for something to do to be better. And sometimes people will, sometimes folks are kind of hard-headed, right? And like, if say you're dealing with a person, we've seen this all the time. Couples, you see couples, they're constantly fighting, they're constantly undermining each other, they're constantly maybe not being honest with each other, and you'll say, why do you stay? Like, why do you keep work? Oh, but I feel like they can change. I feel like I can make them change. Even Michelle Obama admitted. She said, yeah, when I signed up for therapy, I had in my mind that we were going to therapy so that we could fix Barack, so we can fix Barry. She literally signed up for therapy under this assumption that it was Barry that had the problem. Right? And so in her mind, it's like, if I can get Barry to change, our situation will change. It's like, no. She learned, even Michelle Obama had to go to therapy and learn that, no, you are in charge of your own happiness. You are in charge. Me, myself, and I. You are in charge. You're in charge. It's up to you. You are in charge of your own happiness. So you got to go within. You got to go within, shift what you need to shift, let go of what you need to let go of, and then see what happens. Like some parts, some aspects of life, and give yourself grace. Give yourself grace, give yourself patience. Because a lot of life is trial and error. A lot of life in trial and error. You're not going to get everything right the first time. You can't just say, oh, I tried that once. If I seen it once, I've seen it a billion times. I tried that once, it didn't work. I tried that twice, it didn't work. So once you tried it once or twice and it didn't work, that's it. Okay. You know how many of these celebrities we admire every day who didn't blow up? I think Red Hot Chili Peppers, when they blew up, like, we think that give it away now. Like, you think of that as, I think that was their first big single, or one of their first big singles, but it was like their third or fourth album. They've been trying for a while. You got to decide this is what you want, and you do trial and error. Life is about trial and error. You try it, it don't work. You have a meeting with yourself. You consider what you may need to shift. Maybe you need to shift something you're doing. Maybe you need to just shift your expectation. Maybe you need to shift who you're working with. And then you go do it again. If that's what you really want to do, you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it. I think it was Tony Robbins, who said, sometimes you need to, and it's not a perfect quote, sometimes you need to change the method, but you don't have to change the goal. So there's that. Manifestation works for everybody, y'all. That's the first thing. That's the first thing. You start that. Start with that. Start with that. That's how you begin to build a stronger foundation for yourself. If you're in that survival mode, that trauma, what it did is it weakened your foundation. And I mean, it's just one way to put it. It weakened your foundation. And so what you do is you rebuild the foundation. A lot of times we're impatient, kind of like a house. Sometimes, you have a house, and then you have the foundation beneath the house. The foundation is probably the most important part of the house. You can't, if the foundation is cracked, you can't just knock down the house and then build a new house on top of that cracked foundation. It's more work, more money, and more time, but you gotta dig up the foundation and lay a new foundation. And so don't be lazy. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that. I hate to use that word lazy because, I understand a lot of us are tired. A lot of us are exhausted. You're not necessarily lazy. I think the reality is that the trauma might not be your fault. The trauma is not your fault. But your healing is your responsibility. Your healing is your responsibility. All right? Peace.